How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the fourth episode. Jeez, we're already four in. We only got one out. The fourth episode of the Geek Chewns podcast, the show that talks about how geek culture inspires and shapes people's lives. And today we have the lovely Shay Taree, the artist formerly known as Anime Reviewer Girl on YouTube. How are you doing, Shay?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. So tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Shay Taree? Who are you at this moment?
Well, at this moment, I am a girl who loves anime as well as other different forms of, I guess, geekdom, as many people want to say, like comic books, video games, Disney, stuff like that. And I'm someone who likes to make videos about several different topics and post them online, as well as try to show some positivity to others around me and wanting others to pursue their dreams, no
Mm,
matter what they are.
mm. That's cool. Why did you decide to do videos?
Well, I started out having a blog first where I talked mostly about anime. And in a couple of different ways, I wanted, number one, to expand my channel. And then I also wanted to, I guess, be able to make that leap and get a wider audience. And I was a little bit scared at first just because I know that putting yourself out there online is a lot of criticism that
Mm,
goes along with that. Because with a blog, I mean, people can kind of see what you look like if you have your picture up there, but
mm,
a lot of times they're mostly judging your ideas based off of your writing. But when you're online with videos, you open yourself up
mm,
to everyone to see what you look like, judge you based on that.
mm,
Um, so I mostly did it to show myself I could do it, and then also because I wanted to talk to so many other people and get my thoughts across and my feelings across regarding shows, series. And then I also realized with me watching a lot of videos online of other people who reviewed anime that there was no one online that, from what I could tell, not many people that looked like me that were female or were a minority talking about these
mm,
things. I was like, hey, I want to be able to give a voice to those people who feel like they can't do it or don't want to do it,
mm, mm.
to show them that you can.
Did you receive backlash? Like you said, there's a possibility that people will respond negatively. Did you receive negative response?
Um, Not a whole lot via
Mm,
YouTube, but I also post my videos other places. Like I know I've told people before I posted my videos on Anime Amino, and that's just a social media site that's for anime fans that I've been a
mm,
part of for years. And
mm,
I figured to start posting videos on there. And on there, I got some backlash from people on there where they either called me names or
oh,
they,
jeez.
talked about my
Yeah.
looks or
What?
sometimes even calling me derogatory names, which I won't say.
Oh, that's hectic.
Um, yes, things like that. But one of the things I've learned is that, they're behind a computer screen or behind an app or a phone, the most they can say is those words, but it's not going to stop me
Mm,
from doing what it is I want to do because
mm,
overall I'm doing what makes me happy. And a lot of times when I look at those comments from other people saying, I love what you're doing, I like your content, those are the ones I mostly try my best to
mm.
respond to only.
Yeah.
And also those are the ones that keep me going. And
Mm,
it's just something I'm passionate about and I'm happy about. So
mm.
regardless of the backlash I'm getting, as long as it makes me
Yeah.
happy, I keep going.
Yeah, yeah. No, your stuff is fine, so you shouldn't worry. I've seen worse. I've seen worse.
Thank you.
I haven't posted on Anime Amino in a long while, cause this channel, my channel was originally about anime. And then I went on hiatus, and then I kind of changed it into geek culture in general because I couldn't keep up with the anime anymore. If you're like 9 months behind anime, it's terrible, especially because there's just so much stuff coming out these days. It's so
There is.
difficult to like keep track of like what's good and what's bad. It's like, geez, I just don't have time for that. But I still like talking about the stuff. So then I decided I don't just talk about the culture around it because when I grew up, there wasn't a lot of people like me who was engaging with the same type of stuff. Speaking about that, how was your growing up with the stuff that you like? Did you have friends that like the same stuff? Family?
not so much family. My brother and I both did like anime at a certain amount of time, but that's because, in the US, there were periods of time where anime went really mainstream, like
Mm,
things
mm,
like Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon. So my brother and I got caught up in that. So for me, it started off with Sailor Moon and then Pokemon. And then my brother, he loved Dragon Ball Z. But there was a period of time actually where I didn't watch any anime because it just kind of fell off my radar at the time. And of course, in the 90s, it was a little bit harder to get anime unless you either
mm,
bought VHS tapes.
mm,
The internet's not like how it is now, or you caught whatever you could on TV. So I didn't start back into like really watching anime until like middle schoolish, maybe like 12, 13, when Toonami was like at its peak, when it came on like mid afternoons, like 4 or 5 o'clock. And that's when I started getting into other shows like Yu Yu Hakusho and also Rurouni Kenshin. And then I saw Inuyasha at like midnight when it came on Toonami. And those shows I really liked. But I think honestly, when it really started, I'd have to say with me watching shows that weren't mainstream or nostalgic was when I was in
mm,
college. And that's when
mm,
I like binge watched Inuyasha. I binge watched Yu Yu Hakusho so I could finish and see how the show actually ended. And then the first show I watched after that was, I think, Clannad. And that's when Clannad kind of first came out.
mm.
And I completely fell in love with the show. It had me crying and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
But,
Clannad
oh
is
yeah,
it's a stressful anime. It's amazing for
oh
most of
yeah,
it, but the last bit, yo, it's crazy.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it
But
it
none of my
destroys
friends were really
people.
into it. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but none of my friends were really into it. To be honest, I hid it from them for a long time. Um, Honestly, anime was something I hid for a while. I didn't let
Mm,
anybody know I was really into it. It took me a long time to kind of admit I kind of liked it, or was something I was a huge fan of. And I think it wasn't because of the fact I thought it was anything bad. I think it was because of the stigmatism that anime has, is that it's for
mm,
kids. And since I liked it as a kid, and since most of the shows I
mm,
watched as a kid were geared towards kids,
mm,
that I didn't want people to think that it was childish. But then after a while, I started to not really care. And also along the way, like, I don't want to say educate, but I guess show my friends and my family whom started to want to know a little bit more about it, that not all anime was for kids and that some of it did have a lot of adult content in it, and that the storylines went a lot deeper than someone just blowing someone up or fighting. And a lot of the storylines were very, very deep and really did touch you as an individual, and stuff like that.
mm. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I suppose maybe it's the 90s era that had that stigma, but the stuff that came out before then, like things like Cowboy Bebop and like Akira, those were extremely like, adult or at least older than teenage stuff. And I can't even see like things like Dragon Ball even being like totally kids, because some stuff in Dragon Ball is adults. Like Akira
Oh yeah.
Toriyama is very perverted. Like you can see it with some of the scenes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
uh,
Even Sailor Moon wasn't all for kids, but I guess when it came on TV, of course they had to censor a lot of that stuff
they
out.
did,
So,
yeah.
and plus they had to find a market for it. And I
Mm,
think the biggest market that a lot of companies go for is the kids market, because they know once you got the kids hooked, your parents are going to follow with buying the toys and the merchandise. And that's
mm,
the easiest market to go into. So, of course, you know, most of girls, when I was, 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, we were all obsessed with Sailor Moon.
mm,
And even though now I watch Sailor Moon, I'm like, Sailor Moon wasn't entirely for kids, like when you really think about it and watch the content, you're like, it really wasn't for kids. But because of the stuff that they took out or explained differently, it made it more so towards for kids, especially for girls. And just because those shows were so different, for
mm,
Sailor Moon, it was an all girl cast that were kicking butt. So every girl
mm,
loved it. And of course, every girl could somehow identify with a different Sailor Scout. And then with
mm,
Dragon Ball Z, like it was these characters, blowing stuff up, which was different than most cartoons we had that was more comedic. And this one had like
mm,
a storyline attached to it where you had to watch. the first episode to get what was going on in this episode. So I think that was the thing. But I feel like now, especially with like once you got into like the 2000s and stuff, and especially once internet became what it is now, where all of us as fans had more access to different kinds of anime besides what was shown on TV, it like just opened up that world even more to like the different genres of anime besides those that we saw on TV as kids.
Mm. What was the because like I thought about this the other day, and like I realized that like in anime there's a lot more representation of like women as being like powerful entities or like equal to men in like various ways. I don't remember like cartoons having the same type of representation. I don't know whether I'm just because I like anime I feel that way, or whether that was really a thing when you were a kid. I Sailor Moon didn't show in South Africa, so I have no like knowledge of Sailor Moon. I don't actually know what Sailor Moon is about. But from the people from like the girls who I know who like it, I think that they identify with it on on their personal level. So I don't know whether that's something that's really a thing, whether I'm just like the difference between anime and cartoons.
um, I think in a way it's like kind of really a thing because I guess when you look at most just any form of media that has women in it, a lot of times there's never always a strong female character, but you always find a strong male character,
Mm,
or females always have the stigma of wanting to be saved. So then when you do have something that's so different where the female character either is saving the guy, or where the male lead doesn't have that huge of a lead in the show and it is
mm,
mostly the females taking charge, girls kind of like that because it's kind of cool as a female to have someone else to look up to
mm,
and who you can say, that you want to be like. Because I mean, I guess for me, like when you look at most Disney movies with Disney princesses, a lot of them are being saved,
mm,
So a lot
mm,
of girls kind of have, sometimes girls, I won't say all girls, but sometimes girls have that mentality of I have to be saved by a guy. So then when you show a female character, like in Disney, you had Mulan, who saved, of course, who's off of an actual person. And then, of course, you have like, Princess Tiana, who throughout the most of the movie, she's wanting to, to start her career instead of and following her dream rather than finding a guy. And then with Sailor Moon, you had these five or, more than five, all 9 planets at one point. They were all saving the world. And the only male character in there was more standoffish and was kind of more of a love interest than actually someone who was taking charge.
mm,
And that's why girls, a lot of times for Sailor Moon, could relate to it in a lot of ways. And plus, since every character in that show, every female character had a completely different personality, and it was very geared on friendship. Which, when you think about most shows with all female cast, there's always some sort of drama going on, and it doesn't have that female friendship mentality. I mean, a lot of my friends who loved Sailor Jupiter, and Sailor Moon liked her because she could kick some serious butt. And some girls who were really tall were like, they liked her because she was a tall female character. She was very tall in the show. And so a lot of people who were tall were like, I liked her because she made me like my height a lot more.
mm,
And for me, the two characters that I related to the most was I liked Sailor Moon because, number one, well, she was a princess. And of course, a lot of girls had like that princess kind of persona, but she also was very caring towards her friends and her family. And she, most of all, they came number one for her in her life. But she also kind of was very true to herself and being just very nice. And she, of course, was kind of like a crybaby, but she also had all these flaws about her. So she wasn't a perfect person. So she had those flaws where she was boy crazy and that she was a crybaby and she wasn't doing that well in school, but underneath it all, she had like a heart made of gold. But then another character I really liked was Sailor Mars, who was also named Ray. And she was very sassy, and it was kind of fun to have a character that had so much attitude
mm,
and had that kind of like mentality of, well, I'm gonna be a strong character, and that's exactly what she was. And so it feels nice to have those female characters that, number one, either make you feel like you're glad to be who you are, or they show you what you want to strive to be. And that's why I like whenever there's strong female leads. I don't know about
Mm,
everybody else, but
mm,
that's mine.
mm. It's definitely important to have people that you identify with. You know, not even specifically those that look like you, but those that think like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everybody thinks in the same way, and like when you're alone in your thinking, you feel alone. You feel like cut off
Yeah,
from everything.
yeah.
So identifying with people in media is definitely something important for personal development. So did you have
Mm-hmm.
any, like, besides characters from Sailor Moon, any other um, geek culture role models? Maybe from Disney, maybe from other media.
Oh yeah. So I really liked Princess Tiana from the Disney movies,
Mm,
just because she, like I mentioned before, her biggest thing was following her dream of opening her own restaurant. And she wasn't bothered by trying to find a boyfriend or find a husband. That was her number one goal. But she also had flaws because since that was her dream, nothing else mattered. And then along the way, she learned that there's more to that, more to her dream than just that there's other things that can happen. Um, but I also really liked from the series Nana. I really like Nana Osaki from that series because she was a strong character, but she also had her flaws where she needed to be saved herself and needed to depend on people because she had such a strong independence about her that sometimes it got to the point where she never let anybody in, and she needed to let people in order for her to grow. And those were characters I related to and wanted to be like. Because with Nana, she was a strong character. I know for me, I have moments where I'm not very strong or I'm really in my head sometimes. I'm like, I got to get out of this headspace.
mm,
And sometimes I just think about how she is and her personality and how she did kind of like whatever she wanted and she didn't care, that I kind of like looked up to that. And then of course with Prince Tiana, it's mostly the whole thing of striving for your dreams and having that hard work ethic, and making those small goals and small things throughout your life or throughout your career.
mm. What was your first experience with this type of stuff? What was that first moment you realized that you like this weird stuff that other people didn't necessarily enjoy as well?
Oh, like with like anime and stuff.
Mm,
Um, I think when I first realized it is, I guess, kind of like when I was like younger, middle school ish age. And even while though in middle school I wasn't heavily into anime, I still really liked Pokemon at the time. But I started hanging out with, a group of individuals that were like the popular kids.
mm,
So they weren't really into that kind of thing. And I was kind of more so the kid or the child, or even now, that takes a little bit longer to grow up. So
mm,
not saying I still stay childish, but I kind of keep that childish thinking sometimes in some ways.
mm,
And I was the last one to kind of grow out of that stage of liking Pokemon. So that's when I realized, I guess, that I was into something that others were not really into, just because no one else related to me on it. And it's kind of even the same way, even after middle school and going into high school and going into college, I realized there weren't many people that were close to me that really liked it. Um, but now, though, it's crazy to think that there's people that I've known for years that like anime that I never knew liked it,
mm,
and then it turns
mm,
out that we had something to relate with.
mm,
But then, in a strange way, it's kind of fun being the only one to
mm.
like something,
I suppose, yeah.
because then you get to show others and invite them into that world. Like I, for my 25th birthday, really didn't know what to do for my birthday. I kind of wanted to go to Disneyland, but then my birthday's always around a holiday weekend, so everything's always expensive. And then I
Mm,
had found out about an anime convention that wasn't too far from me that I actually really wanted to go to, and I wanted to do that for my 25th birthday. So I dragged my mom and two of my best friends, my other best friend couldn't go because of work, but two of my best friends with me to this convention, and they had a great time. And it was fun because I got to invite them into this world of mine that they didn't
Mm,
know that I loved, that I liked, or even the fact that they didn't know I did a blog about it. They didn't know I did a YouTube channel about it. So it was kind of like I lived this weird double life that my friends didn't know about.
mm,
And finally being able to combine both of them was a wonderful thing for me. And it was kind of cool because now I didn't feel like I had to hide it from my
mm,
friends.
mm. So has like doing your YouTube channel for, I think you've been doing it for like a year and a half, right? I think we
Mm-hmm.
started relatively the same time. I think like our channel just started after yours. And then we went on hiatus. You've been doing really well in that time. You've gotten quite a bit
Thanks.
of a following. So do you feel like you've changed in any way with regard to your like your thinking about this type of stuff since you started and up until now?
Yeah, it is. In some ways, before when it came to anime, I didn't really know what it was I liked about it. I just knew I liked it. But now I've learned that what's really important to me in anime isn't so much the art style. I know a lot of reviewers talk about the art style and stuff
Mm,
like that, but for me, I realize just because for me I don't come from an artistic background with drawing or anything like that, that the
mm,
visually it doesn't really matter for me unless it's something that's super either outlandish or super colorful. Like for example, with Miyazaki, of course I love his artwork because everything's just so like Alice in Wonderland-ish
mm,
sometimes. But I realized that characterization for me is the biggest thing. I love seeing characters grow throughout a series. I
mm,
love seeing those dynamic relationships between two characters, and I love seeing, I guess, the drama or being able to, you know, the characterization the most, but also I learned I love the plot of stories, especially if I can relate to the plot on a deeper level, and relate to characters on a deeper level. Besides just saying I like this character, I can now say I like this character because I related to the situation they were in due to me being in that situation. So I can put myself in that character's shoes, or even if I haven't been in that situation, I can feel what that character is feeling and be like, dang, I don't know what I would do in that
mm,
situation. So in some ways that did change, but what also changed for me though also was how I looked at live action adaptations of anime.
mm,
Before I was someone, and I even said this before on my YouTube channel before, that I was someone who really always wanted that if an anime adaptation was done, I wanted someone who was um, primarily Asian to be the main character, just because I know how it felt as a minority to have someone play a pivotal character that also looked like you. But then along the way, I learned that, you know what, even if they don't, depending on what studio has it, it doesn't matter what that person looks like. It matters if they can actually portray that character truly for who that character is, and it
mm,
shouldn't matter what they look like. And
mm,
that's also changed for me after, realizing what I really liked about anime overall, and not just anime, but even with manga and just with reading um,
mm.
through the stories and the plots of these
Mm,
characters.
mm. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to adaptations, I mean, with any sort of entertainment, there's more to it than just what the characters look like. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's how they are acted, how they are written, how the directors are directing the actors, how the story is like flowing. There's a lot of all of these factors that take into account besides just who's playing the part. So I feel like not everybody's doing it, but I feel like a lot of people forget about like actually what makes a good movie or a good just story or good piece of entertainment and what that entertainment represents. There's kind of like a disjunct there. We have to look at the stuff objectively first. Like you have to see whether it's actually a good movie, whether it's written properly, whether it's acted properly, whether it's flowing properly. All of those stuffs are the most important things, and then below that is what the actual like people involved represent. That's how I feel. Especially because I was also reviewing anime and stuff, and it's like it's really difficult to do things too subjectively because you always want to put your feelings into your review. Um, But as a reviewer, you have to look at things objectively as well. If something doesn't have good flow, it doesn't have good flow. You know, if it doesn't have good writing, it doesn't have good writing. And like my feelings about it, okay, that's fine to put that out there, but you have to point out like if something is wrong in an objective manner, you have to point that out. And sometimes those outweigh the kind of subjective feelings that people have. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of true. I
Mm,
mean, it's kind of the same way how you, I know as a reviewer, I've had moments in time where I've had to say I didn't like an anime that
mm,
most people loved.
mm,
Like,
mm,
I know when No Game, No Life, everyone loved it. They completely loved it. They thought it was a cool anime. And I watched it and I did not like it. And it
mm,
was one that later on I pointed out saying that many people loved it because the art was wonderful. And I had said to people before, I said, yeah, the art was good. I said, but the storyline sucked. I just didn't like it. Like,
mm,
I couldn't get into it. I just didn't understand where it was going. And you're right. There are times where you do have to just point out and say, this was just wrong.
mm,
I'm sorry. Like, I can't agree agree
mm,
with this. I can't
mm.
say this was good. Um, and I think I was a reviewer that can also get kind of scary, especially if it's a show or a series that so many people like. And
It's
for you to
popular.
call
Yeah.
it out and
Mm,
say, I don't like it,
yeah.
maybe people are gonna be like that's blasphemy. Like for example, I haven't watched the Boruto series. I haven't read it,
Mm,
and I know many people may not like me saying it, but I don't plan to watch it at this point in time. I
mm,
liked Naruto, don't get me wrong. I thought it was a pretty good show. I liked the manga, but I'm not that invested to watch
mm,
Boards
mm,
and see where it goes from there. But I think you're right that as a reviewer, sometimes you can't put your feelings into it, and that you do sometimes have to just look at it from a subjective point of view
mm.
and sometimes
Yeah,
call it out.
yeah. I know your feels about the Boruto thing because I love like Naruto. Like Naruto speaks to me on this like next level stuff. I love like Naruto's progression and like I feel like a lot of things in Naruto, especially like the Bijus, I kind of feel like they're all like an analogy for like creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Like and in real life, you know, like some people have things in them that to other people seem monstrous. You know, like if these kids want to go out and like play in the yard and do weird things, you know, if it's not seen as like something that's normal, they get like shut down and stifled.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how Naruto felt when he, you know, was growing up and he was alone because he didn't have his parents. And I felt like the QB was kind of an analogy for that. And when he fully embraced it, that's when he got like powerful, you know, like later on in the series. I think about Naruto in a very deep way because I'm like a super Naruto geek, but also
Yeah.
I'm not interested in Boruto at all. Like
Yeah.
not even in because I don't understand. Like I don't understand what Boruto is going to be about. Like they didn't portray like who Boruto is. The only thing that I know about him is that he's kind of like a spoiled brat and he kind of has like daddy issues because Naruto is pretty busy. That's bad part on Naruto's part because you can't be a deadbeat dad, you know. Even though like you're working and stuff, like you gotta if you have kids, you gotta come to the party. You know, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
family, you've got to be a parent. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what Boruto represents. To me, it just seems like a cash grab, and I can't get into that.
Yeah, I kind of
So.
agree with you on that one. It was
Mm,
kind of a way to keep the series going because I know
mm,
Naruto did make them a lot of money. And it's kind of like with, I hate to say it, but with Dragon Ball Z. I mean, Dragon Ball
mm,
Z could have ended a long time ago, but since everyone know that
mm,
Dragon Ball Z is a cash cow for Funimation and and um and for Toei Animation, that they know that if they keep it going, they're gonna keep getting that money. But it's kind of similar for me when Sailor Moon Crystal came out, and
mm,
everyone was so happy when they came out with Sailor Moon
mm,
Crystal. And I, as a fan, of course, of Sailor Moon, when they announced Crystal, I went crazy because, of course, with them releasing Crystal, so did
Mm.
all the merchandise came out with it as well.
Mm.
So I was happy because I got to buy Sailor Moon merchandise that I couldn't necessarily buy as a kid. So when Crystal came out, Crystal was released, and it was season 1 and 2, I believe, that they released. I hated it. I felt bad as a fan because I was
Yeah.
like, I feel bad as a fan because I have to rip this show apart, but I did not like it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool though because other fans also of the show, of the original show, who then watched Crystal, were also not huge fans of it because they were like, it just wasn't very good. But of course, they fixed it with the third season. But season 1 and season 2, a lot of people didn't really like it because it didn't have that same feel as the original. And that's where I understood where, like, man, I feel bad saying this about this show because I know and I love it, but it's just not good. And it made me feel terrible. But I was just like, I got to call it out. I said, I can't say this is good because it's not. And even though a lot of my friends pointed it out for more of the artistic reasons, once again, because one of my friends, she is an artist, so she's just like, this was just done weird. But for me, I was just like, wow, I didn't catch that. I said, for me, it was the characterization of the characters. I was just like, the characters, all the characters except for Sailor Moon all had, it seems like, the same personality. All their jokingness was gone. It seems like they focused so much on the romance than they did on the friendship of the characters, and that's where it lost me. And that was where a lot of my friends were like, yeah, we noticed that too. I was like, yeah, like if we played Sailor Moon now as adults, I can't say that I'm this or that character because they all feel the same. And I don't feel like I'm going to be an individual anymore. And like you, as a fan, I was upset that it was so bad. But of course they fixed it, so it made me happy again. But still, I understood where that came from.
It's the same with Dragon Ball Super. A lot of people like it now, but they forget that first season was terrible. The animation was bad, the story was nonsense. Well, it was just a copy and paste with some bloating from the new movies that came out. And those movies were good. Like Resurrection of F and Battle of the Gods. Those movies were cool. And then they were like, okay, let's just bloat this out and make it an anime and then go from there. It did kind of get good with the tournament arc. But I haven't seen any of the new stuff. I think it's called the survival stuff or whatever. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I can't do ongoing anime anymore, just because it's too much. It's too much production to be quality. They've been having this problem for a long time with ongoing stuff. That's why things like filler episodes exist. That's why stories are drawn out. That's why there's so much unnecessary dialogue and fight scenes. I felt like even at the end of Naruto, there was a chance for them to cut it there and work on something seasonal for Boruto instead of doing ongoing. No one wants to do that kind of stuff anymore. In fact, they should be trying to modernize it and just release a whole season in one go, like Netflix does with things, and let us just binge watch it instead. But I feel like the Japanese market is very resistant to that type of change. But the fact that they kind of struggling financially should also mean that they maybe should adapt to some things. And there's people getting sick and stuff in the manga and the anime industry, people being overworked. There's definitely stuff going on, and people don't wanna I see Joey the anime man talking about it, but it's kind of an inconvenient truth of stuff that's going on in the manga and anime industry. But because it was just it's traditional, most things in Japan, once they have a tradition, they stick to it, and they're so resistant to change. But it's I don't know, something needs to change along the way. That's how I feel it should be. And
I think I understand. I understand what you mean. I feel like it's a lot of with also because technology has also changed. Because I feel like before you could get away with having a longer series because with technology before, we didn't have access to it like we do now. So of course, if you're in the US and if it's a show like Dragon Ball Z, you're able to buy VHS tapes that has a certain number of episodes, and you might have to wait for those episodes to come
Mm,
out. But now with the fact that now so many companies now do simulcast, like Funimation and Crunchyroll do it, so now a show airs in Japan and you're watching it here in the US
mm,
subtitled either the same day or the
mm,
next day.
mm,
And so that now it's like, hey, we have to keep up now a lot more because of the fact that technology has changed. And especially now with things like people who torrent or people who fan sub it or people who, you know, get it illegally, you know, now they have
mm,
to keep up with those people.
mm,
But I understand where you're coming from also with watching a longer series.
mm.
For me, I have a bad habit of starting longer series once they're hundreds of episodes in. I did the same thing with
Jeez.
I did that with Bleach.
That's a death
I started
wish.
right. I started Bleach when Bleach was under hiatus at that
Yeah.
point in time. So
Oh
I kind of like
no.
100 and something episodes in Bleach at the time, and
Yeah.
I started it and I ended it. I finished it right before they started their Hueco Mundo arc,
Mm,
and then I did the same thing with Naruto. They were very far into Shippuden when I started Naruto, and
mm,
then I went through that and I went through Shippuden. Although I'll be honest, I have not finished Shippuden just because I ended up reading the manga and I finished
mm.
the manga, so I know how the show
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
so I think I could do a longer show if I caught it when it first started and I didn't
mm,
know how many episodes it was going to be.
mm,
But I feel like also us as fans get even more frustrated than with a longer series than we do with series that end, and
mm,
they end on a way where we know there should be a second season and
mm.
then there never is a second
There
season.
isn't.
But then
Yeah.
the
Mm.
manga is ongoing. So then you have to
Ongoing.
go back and read the manga. Like I did
Mm,
that with Fruits Basket. I,
mm,
you know, finished Fruit Basket, which is 26 episodes, and then people were like, "Oh, the manga is finished," and they didn't introduce all the characters, and there was never another season of Fruits
mm,
Basket. Um, there's so many different shows that people wish could have another season, like Skip Beat. Skip Beat's still going,
mm,
and the anime's been finished, but
mm,
people just wish there was another one. But I feel like the only show I can think of where I think, even though it was like, it was in that sweet spot, which was Full Metal Alchemist, was in that sweet spot of being long enough to
mm,
end fairly well. And then also it gave us another series because they knew they didn't end it the way the manga ended, but it still ended in a way where us as fans were not upset about that ending, and it didn't end it and then give us a filler until the
mm,
anime was done.
mm.
And I feel like a lot of series should follow that route, especially if it's being based off of a manga or a graphic novel, to follow that route more so than dragging it out and giving us fillers.
Yeah, yeah. I think in Japan they have like a different idea about what anime is. To me, well, I've also heard this rumor from some people. In that market, an anime is actually just like a trailer. So like a season of anime is just like a trailer for the manga. Um, so if a manga doesn't do well, it's not likely to get an anime. But if an anime doesn't do well either, the manga will also suffer, and it works in like a balance type of thing. And it's weird. Did you like the original FMA or Brotherhood more?
I like them both.
Mm,
And I think I told you this before. I said they're both wonderful animes and they both really make you think.
mm,
And it's kind of cool. You see the progression of the characters during both series. But I tell
mm,
people if you want to watch it and have comedy in it, then watch Full Metal Alchemist. But if you
mm,
want it without the comedy, but you want it to be a much darker series and much more serious, then watch Brotherhood. They both have their own separate endings, but
mm,
they both get to a certain point where it makes you think, of
mm,
course.
mm,
And so I like both series for separate reasons. Like
mm,
I said, Fullmetal Alchemist has that comedic aspect between Ed and with Roy Mustang. Like,
mm,
I'm sorry, there's no way to get around that comedic duo.
mm,
But then with Brotherhood, though, you see Roy Mustang kick some serious butt when it
mm,
comes to lust and when it
mm,
comes to energy. And you're just like, I love it for both those aspects. But I was late to the Full Metal Alchemist train. Like Full Metal Alchemist had been over when I finally watched it, and then when I watched Brotherhood, I was so happy to watch Brotherhood.
mm,
And I honestly didn't even know that it didn't end like the manga did, to be honest, just because they ended it so well.
Mm.
So I was shocked when people were like, when they were talking about Brotherhood, and I was just like, oh, are they doing a reboot? And then someone later on, I was watching YouTube, and I think it was Vic Mignogna was talking about it, and he was like, it's not a reboot. He said they made the original, realized the manga wasn't done, and then deviated from the manga and made their own ending. And I was just like, well, that was one hell of an ending.
Mm.
And then they came up with Brotherhood. They were like, Brotherhood's following the direct path of the manga. So it's going to be very different, a little bit darker. Characters that were in the first one are not in this one. New characters are introduced. And I was just like, well, now I want to check it out to see how it's actually supposed to end and see if I like it. So, yeah. What about you? Which one did you like more?
Full Metal Alchemist has a very special place in my heart because it was the first anime that I watched in Japanese, with subtitles instead of. Up until that point, I'd only seen what was on TV in South Africa, which was basically it started off with Pokemon, then went on to Dragon Ball, then went on to Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. So when I got to college, that's when I discovered that there's more anime out there, and you can watch them in their native Japanese, and it's much better. I don't care what other people say. I like my subbed over dubbed. Although dubbed is getting better now because they're investing much more in voice actors and investing much more in molding it to fit better. So I can appreciate that. So the original Full Metal Alchemist is very special to me. Brotherhood, I felt like the pacing was too fast, especially like early on. It just kept going like from scene to scene to scene, and it was really exhausting. But like when it got to that point where it surpassed like the original in the story point, like when they introduced that other type of alchemy, like the Far East type, that's when I really got interested because that wasn't anywhere in the original, and that alchemy was the only one that worked on homunculi, I think. Like the homunculi weren't immune to that alchemy, and I thought that was interesting. So from then onwards, it was pretty cool. But yeah, the original is definitely more special to me than Brotherhood. But I need to go and read the manga to see exactly what was going on because the pacing was so quick. Like they jumped from like scene to scene to scene. I was tired like after the first few episodes, and I was confused, even having like after watched like the whole one like 3 times. Yeah, I was confused. But I love Full Metal Alchemist. It's a special place in my heart.
Yes. Full Metal Alchemist is like a show.
Do you play video games, anime video games, any type of video games?
I do from time to time. I own a couple of systems. I have an Xbox and I have a PS4. I do not play them very often. My PS4 is literally under my bed in a box because I have moved and I never took it out of the box. But at the time on PS4, my favorite game to play was Mortal Kombat. For me, that game is nostalgic because I played Mortal Kombat on Sega Genesis as a kid. I was definitely more of a gamer as a kid on consoles than I am now as an adult. As an adult, I definitely deviate more towards either my Nintendo DS. I'm working on trying to get a Switch, but as everyone knows, they are so hard to get your hands on. And mobile gaming on my cell phone because it's in my pocket, it's in my hand, it's on the go. So on my cell phone, I play like Sailor Moon Drops, which is kind of like Candy Crush, but with Sailor Moon characters. Of course, I think I'm one of the few people that still plays Pokemon Go. I still play that from time to time.
One of those few rare breeds, yeah.
I am a rare breed.
Which group are you in?
I am on Mystic? That's the blue one, right?
Thank goodness. Yeah, Mystic.
I'm not on. I'm on Mystic.
I'm also Team Mystic.
Oh, yay! Because everyone I know is Team Valor. Everyone I know is Valor.
I hate Valor.
I remember at my old job, I worked in retail, and I didn't know this, but apparently everybody at our store was supposed to be Team Valor who was playing the game.
Oh dear.
No one told me this, so I chose Mystic, and I thought I was one of the few other people in the store that chose Mystic. But it was kind of cool to go against my friends. But I realized I didn't play it to battle. I mostly played it to try and catch all the
Yeah,
Pokemon.
okay. It was a
So I
collector
still
thing, yeah.
do that. I was more so of a collector. I hate to
Mm.
think that way because it makes me think of the movie Pokemon 2000 where the guy was a
Oh,
collector.
jeez.
And
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
I don't want to be like him. I'm not like him. I just want to catch up the Pokemon. But
That's a deep
I just
cut.
I just don't want to be like that. But
That's a old
I
school
love
reference. Jeez.
I I I know. I
Yeah.
love that. It was one of my
That
most
was the
favorite movies.
only in
But
South Africa. That was the only anime movie that ever showed, if I can remember. That was the
really,
only anime movie ever showed in cinemas. Pokemon the movie 2000. It was amazing.
I I think, well, I know here they showed more, but I guess
Mm,
for me as a kid, the first one I remember seeing was Pokemon, the first movie
mm,
that came out in theaters. I think I was like 9 when it came out, and
mm.
I dragged my parents to go see that movie, and they fell asleep because, of course, they didn't want to watch it, but I forced them to see it with me.
It's an
I think I saw
amazing
that.
movie, man. It hit you
I
right in the feels, man.
I know when Ash is turned to stone and Pikachu is trying to shock him.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I saw it like
that is like same
five.
level as like Mufasa in Lion King.
So I know so many people that were like they would never show their kids Lion King because it scars them with Mufasa's death, and I was
Yeah.
like, you can't have to show that it's a classic. Like it's a classic
It's a
movie.
rite of passage.
It
Yeah.
is the rite of
Yeah.
passage. Like I love that movie,
Yeah.
but that was the first one I think I dragged my parents to go see. Then it was Pokemon the movie 2000. I dragged them to see that. Um, I can't remember the third one came out in theaters. I think it did, but I don't think I went and
Mm,
saw it in theaters. But I know I bought it on VHS. For
mm.
all those kids out there that are like, "What is
What is
VHS?"
VHS?
They're taped.
Yeah.
And but I do know that Pokemon the first movie, no, either Pokemon the movie, or Pokemon to be a master soundtrack for the first TV soundtrack was the first CD I ever purchased.
Oh, that's
At
interesting. Yeah.
I played that CD out like I played it like crazy, and but yeah, Pokemon has like a deep rooted part in my heart. Just because
Yeah.
as a kid, I was that kid that when my friends and I would play house,
Mhm.
my stepsister used to get mad at me because people say, "Oh, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, I'm the child." I would always say, "I'm a Pokemon trainer," and people would get upset because they're like, "You're not playing the game right." That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
And so like it was a running joke with my old coworkers when Pokemon Go was coming out, and it was being steadily released in different parts of the world, but it hadn't yet hit the U.S. And I was like, if this game comes out before I go to work tomorrow, Shakori now quits because I'm no longer going to be there working. I'm going to be on my Pokemon journey. So the that I was going to do that, but I didn't, of course. But when it came out, we all were crazy playing the game outside, walking around,
It was a
and
phenomenon. It was a phenomenon. And also like
well,
it's also the first time that you had like camaraderie between people because of the group system, the team system. Like all my friends were Mystic, and like we all had this hatred for Valor and putting all of their Pokemon in our gyms. And we're like, no, we need to make the city blue. That's what we need to do.
yes,
Yeah, it was
but even,
really an interesting, and I feel sad that it like fizzled out. But at the end of the day, it
yeah,
wasn't that well of a design game. Like it was lacking in many technical aspects, and I don't think they fixed it fast enough. For some reason, they didn't expect it was going to be this popular, which is dumb because it's Pokemon.
I, yeah, I think it was like I honestly though I in some ways I understand why they didn't think it was going to be this popular was
Mm,
because of the fact even though Pokemon's by no means well, okay, let's be real, Pokemon's kind of old because it's been
mm,
out for a long time.
mm,
But I don't think they realized how many people, young and old, were going to play this game. I mean, you had kids who were 6 or 7 playing this game, and I saw people at my customers that would come in and have this game on their phones, and they're upwards of 70 years old playing Pokemon Go. And so I didn't think they understood just how many people would, number one, play it due to them liking Pokemon or playing it for a nostalgic feel, or even playing it for exercise, because so many people would say they lost so much weight because the game required you to
Mm,
walk places or
mm,
required you to go different places, or the
mm,
fact that so many people made so many different friends because they would go out and play. Like I
mm.
know my friends and I one time we went and drove to a city near us because there was a park that would spawn dratinis, and the park
So
was
lucky.
packed. The park was
Yeah.
packed at like 11 o'clock at night, and there's a whole bunch of us out
Mm,
there trying to catch dratinis, and we were talking to each other. Someone put out a lure, and we were just all having fun, having a good time. And someone would go dratini, and then we'd all walk to wherever the dratini is and
yeah.
all catch it, and then walk back. And
Mm,
so I think because everyone knows the hassle it was trying to get on that game when it first came out. I mean, you would get on and you would hear servers are busy, and you're just
mm,
like, well, I'm not on this game anymore. And I think a lot of people also took it to a level of cheating. People would
mm,
have, apps to say where Pokemon were, or they would make it where they didn't have to leave their house and they could travel anywhere and
mm,
catch the Pokemon that were
mm,
needed. And I think they had the right idea, especially with the fact that there were only certain Pokemon you could catch in certain parts of the world. Like I know that Tauros was only in the U.S. that you could
mm,
actually catch, and anywhere else in the world you had to either hatch it from an egg, or you know, or something. But for
mm,
most of us, here in the U.S., it was like, oh, that's what's here. That's what we can catch.
mm,
Um, but I think they're trying to make it better now. They've released the Generation 2's
mm.
Pokemon, so now you can catch those. Now, like I caught like a Totodile,
Okay.
stuff like that.
The
But
The Donald Duck crocodile.
yep, the Donald Duck Crocodile. But then it also made, I feel like though with Pokemon Go, it did make like a leadway for showing companies that games like this with an augmented reality game will work. Like I know a lot of people now want there to be like a Yu-Gi-Oh game
Oh
like
yeah.
this, or a
Oh yeah.
Digimon game,
Oh
or
yeah.
some people
Yeah.
said I think like Dragon Ball Z, where you have to get all of the Dragon Balls. I think someone
Okay.
even said a Harry
Interesting.
Potter one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter one was the biggest one people really wanted, was Harry Potter. But people feel like that those augmented reality games work, and even those within the anime industry, seeing that anime games can work. I mean, everyone now knows about the Yu-Gi-Oh card game that's out on iOS systems that
Mm,
and Android systems that many people are playing.
mm.
There's the Sailor Moon game out. There's the Pokemon Rumble game that's out. I mean, Nintendo came out with Mario Run. I mean, there's even talks of a Zelda game coming to iOS. And I think it's making the gaming industry for mobile players even bigger than even those for like console and even handheld games
Mm,
in some aspects.
But I hope they don't like look at the Pokemon Go model and then make like a subpar game before release, because that'll be frustrating. Um, because Pokemon Go could have still been really hyped if they had fixed some stuff, but
Yeah.
they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've almost hitting an hour here, so let's hit our rapid fire round where I ask you whether this or that thing has more effect on your life. Not necessarily better, but more effect on your life. Okay. Star Trek or
Okay.
Star Wars?
Uh, Star Wars.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Oh, Harry Potter, definitely.
Okay, interesting. Batman or Iron Man?
Ooh, Iron Man.
Okay, okay. I need to take notes of these because I need to make a poll like after like 20 episodes to see what the rankings are. Superman or Spider-Man?
Spider-Man.
Okay, nice. Nathan Drake or Master Chief?
Oh, Master Chief.
Okay. Sonic or Mario?
Ooh, Sonic.
Okay. Um, yeah, interesting choices. I think the past few guests I had chose Lord of the Rings instead of Harry Potter. Interesting.
Really?
Yeah. I'm also more of a Lord of the Rings fan than I am Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter, but Lord of the Rings was first for me. I read the books
Oh,
first and I
Harry
watched the
Potter.
stuff first before Harry Potter.
I think Harry Potter for me was first. Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, I watched the first movie in theaters,
Mm,
and it was funny because my dad didn't know it was a trilogy, And so when
Yeah.
it ended, my dad was like, "What? That's it?" I was like, "Oh, there's gonna be another one, I guess."
Yeah, so thanks for coming on, Shay. It's been a nice little
No
chat.
problem.
I'm sure I'll have you on again at some point, to
Thanks for having
discuss
me.
how you progressing through your geek or journey through geekdom. For everyone watching at home, do remember to like the video. If you did, subscribe to the channel for more conversations like this about how geek culture inspires and shapes people's lives. And remember to always be yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. Otherwise, stay tuned and cheers. You don't want to say goodbye.
Oh no, I
It's been interesting. Some people say like goodbye straight after I do, and then others like just wait. It's weird. Uh, Cheers, guys.
Bye.